They don't need cars, gas, oil, meter maids, or Arabs or Israelis.
He calls himself Lone Star Swan, and even in this eclectic neighborhood, he stands out as a colorful character, unique, eccentric. He is, in fact, mentally ill.
I am schizophrenic. I am 1,000-person characters. I have claimed to be God, Jesus, Buddha, and Napoleon, and backed it up and proved it.
He sometimes calls himself Messiah.
Jesus eats his heart out at every word I say. My scriptures are so much better than anything in the Bible.
His mind is filled with voices he can't control.
I have to listen to them off and on. If I ever shut up, I have to listen to them. Sometimes you hum or something to shut them up.
Them?
The voices.
Voices that say hateful things.
And it's just constant harassing and heckling. I say, we're going to kill your pigeon the minute your back is turned. Just stuff all day long.
Swan has grand delusions. He's run for mayor, governor, president.
Take a chance. Take a chance on Lone Star Swan America. I will back it up with books.
He's deeply paranoid, believing the government has mind rays to control his thoughts.
And they can spy on your mind, and they can force send on your mind, and they also found a way to map the nerves, and they can wiggle your eyes, they can clench your fists and give you Charlie horses and headaches. And what I'm telling you is probably top secret, and they may stop you at the airport because I told you this.
Swan was not always a schizophrenic living on the street. His real name is John Ratliff. He was once one of my best friends.
I don't know what to say. It's just hard to believe that's the same guy I worked with 30 years ago.
In the early 1970s, John was a television news reporter. He was exceptionally talented, one of the most creative people I've ever known. We worked together at a small station in Springfield, Illinois. John went on to produce documentaries. This one, called Sam, about the Special Olympics, won a first-place prize at the San Francisco International Film Festival. In those days, John was a family man with a wife and 4 children.
In so many ways, he was such a great father, and so caring, and so much fun, and so charismatic.
With the birth of Casey, he changed. Something just changed.
In a small house in Minneapolis, Mary Ratliff raised John's children by herself.
I didn't want to leave him, but I obviously couldn't live like that, or the kids.
Mary escaped with the kids in 1974 when John began having psychotic episodes and threatened the family.
I mean, he held us hostage on a farm for 2 weeks. Kids would eat corn from the cornfields during that time. I was down to 85 pounds. Chris, I had hives all over her.
I'll always love him. I may always be a little bit angry, and I will always be a little hurt that he wasn't there when I was growing up. That he missed so much, as well as that I missed so much.
I longed for a dad most of my life.
It was chaotic, and I guess, I think like most kids that parents split up, you kind of hope they get back together.
And I was always so mad at him because I thought he could change, that he could change. And I just couldn't figure out why he was doing this, why he was breaking up the family.
As Mary learned more about schizophrenia, she eventually understood John could not control the destructive thoughts that seized his mind. Out of necessity, Mary has become well educated about mental illness. Her oldest son, David, also suffers from schizophrenia.
One time we had David, finally got him into the emergency room, and he's just screaming that they're taking my brain away, they're taking it, and you can't get through to it, you can't break that.
There is a strong genetic component to schizophrenia. If one of your parents has the illness, you have a 10% chance of having it too.
So anytime your own behavior gets a little erratic, or you're under a lot of stress, or any other normal type of, you start wondering, well, you know, am I going crazy for real?
It's not only a life-changing disease, it's a many lives-changing disease.
Schizophrenia has fractured this family and traumatized every one of the Ratliffs, especially Mary.
Oh, the kids can tell you I've cried my share of tears. Helplessly, because you're just helpless.
At first they'll be scared of you because they know what human beings are like, you know.
While the Ratliff kids grew up without their father, they kept his memory, and all of them have tried in some way to renew a relationship with him.
Everyone in my family has felt the need to go out and rescue him in some way, or make a difference, or get him off the streets.
Casey went to San Francisco last summer to find his father.
And I walked right up to him. I said, Lone Star Swan. He goes, yes, who is this? I go, John Ratliff? And he said, yeah. Who are you? I said, I'm your son, I'm Casey Ratliff. And he carded me. He wanted my license. He wanted to know if I was telling him the truth. He goes, well,
Casey laughs to cover the hurt he feels from his father's rejection.
And he never let me hug him. He let me shake his hand. I know what illness is, and, you know, logically, and I'm educated and whatever, but it didn't matter. It still stabbed you in the heart.
It's one of the dilemmas of this disease. John's paranoia prevents him from accepting help from the people who love him the most.
And I frankly think I probably have no kids, but I helped raise partway 4 kids.
Under our laws, John has a right to choose this life, even if it's not entirely a rational choice. So here he remains on the streets of San Francisco, feeding his birds and spreading his offbeat ideas. Almost every day, he pecks out a one-page newsletter on an old typewriter. He calls it his rag, and he writes about mind rays and pigeons, his dreams and delusions. He passes out copies in the neighborhood. Most people ignore them, but there are some loyal readers who find a certain insight through John's insanity.
And at the same time, there was kind of a poetic truth to everything he was saying that I found to be really interesting. Sure, it sounded crazy, but on the other hand, it was actually right. It was sane, you know, in a certain sense.
Even when I knew him 30 years ago, John had a unique perspective on life. He still does. And despite his illness, if you listen carefully, you can still hear echoes of a poet's voice.
Standing, sticking your head into a tree, looking at the berries, half struck with the light through the leaves, and say, wow, that looks just like a bunch of moons.
John's way with words has won him a certain status on the street. He's found acceptance here and some degree of respect.
He's almost become a holy man or a wise man to the neighborhood. And you'll find that certain people look up to him. I mean, some people can laugh at him, but most of the people here have learned to love him.
A lot of people know me for my rag.
Living on the street is a hard life, but John's found a sense of purpose here.
And so I'm doing what I feel I must do, I will do. I do it without pay, and I would do it if I was crippled crawling on a sidewalk. I'd do it, and when I die, I'm coming back and punch them in the mouth and do it again. So I guess I'm happy. I'm doing what I damn well I'm going to do.